be seated. So when I was about 5 years old, my mom gave me a so-called children's Bible. The illustrations in it were horrifying. They're lurid, they're full of grotesque detail. You can see the agony on the faces of the people drowning in the flood. You can see the people sprawled out with boils in the plagues of Egypt. And of course, it had all the gory details of the crucifixion with the broken and bleeding Jesus. I had nightmares about all of it. But I thought this wretched book was long gone. Maybe it got left behind when we moved, or it got ruined in a basement flood. Oh no. It had been in a box at my aunt's house. And my mom brought it to me as a surprise a few months ago. Look what I found. Oh, special delivery, childhood trauma. Once I got up the nerve to look inside and see if the pictures were as horrendous as I remembered, they were. I was surprised to see that after all these years, it still fell right open to the pages I had actually liked to look at, the maps. It had maps of Paul's missionary journeys, a map of the Israelites wandering in the wilderness, the locations of Bethlehem and Nazareth and Jerusalem and the Sea of Galilee. These I liked, these pretty little embellished maps with red lines for routes and cute little camels and palm trees down on the side for decorations. But there was no map for the journey of the Magi. On a practical level, I would guess this might be because the editors really had no idea where they started from. Persia is a pretty big place. Plus, I've heard that the Magi might have come from as far away as China, or that they might have been local astrologers wandering around Judea. So this lack of a map is a little disappointing to child me, but adult me can appreciate it on a symbolic level. How do you draw a spiritual journey on a map? Our Magi hardly deserve the title wise men at the start of the story. The Three Stooges calling each other wise guys might be more appropriate. Oh, they knew enough to realize what the star meant. They knew it was leading them towards the newborn divine baby king of the Jews. But somehow they were not savvy enough to think, hey, maybe Herod isn't the right guy to ask for directions. I know there was no GPS, no AAA, but come on. Herod was only partly Jewish. He was wildly unpopular with the people of Judea because everyone knew he was only holding the throne because Rome was propping him up. So for the Magi to approach Herod, who does not have a newborn son, and ask for directions to the newborn king of the Jews, awkward. I wonder if the Magi had lost sight of the star, or if they lost trust in it. God's light does not always illuminate a path that makes sense by the ways of the world. But they do pick the star's trail back up. They do make their way to Jesus and Mary. Well, Matthew tells us that they were overwhelmed with joy, that they knelt down and paid Jesus homage. Matthew doesn't say that they so much as took their caps off in the presence of the powerful King Herod, but this tiny child, they knelt and they worshiped. They had found their way. They found their road, but it won't show up on any map. They left for their own country by another road. And of course, Matthew says this is to avoid Herod, but there's symbolic value here too. How can you follow the same old road once you've encountered the Christ? Your life changes. You change. Everything changes, including your road trip. I wonder if this realization that the road is going to be very different from now on is part of why the early church called themselves the followers of the way. Matthew doesn't tell us whether or not the Magi made it home without having to ask for directions again, now that they didn't have the star to follow. but I would like to imagine that its light, God's light, now visible to them, it followed at their backs, always present, illuminating their path in new ways and guiding them home. Amen.